fellow makeup lovers, how are you guys doing today? So I'm super excited for this video because I'm going to be doing a review of the Lunar Beauty Moonspell palette. So I kind of died a little when this launched because I just thought that the packaging was so beautiful, and I love the idea of doing a color story based around purple and green, and then there is a mixture of neutrals inside. I'm trying to kind of just face the palette in the right light so you can see what the colors truly look like. It does have, as you can see, a super reflective packaging, which makes the colors a little hard to capture on camera, but I really wanted to try this out and I wanted to try Lunar Beauty. So I already did a video that's up on my channel, which is like finally trying Lunar Beauty or something along those lines. I can link down below in case you want to see my first impression. I tried out the highlighter, the lip gloss, and the palette, and then I decided to go ahead and do a week of this palette, which is going to be up tomorrow. So I've done 5 different looks with it, apart from the looks that, like, I filmed 5 different looks with it. I've done others on my own and the first impression. So there's been more than looks than just the 5, but there will be 5 looks up tomorrow is what I'm trying to say. I don't know why I'm stumbling over my words right now. So I thought today I would just go ahead and break down the palette, what I think of it, my experience, if I would buy another Lunar Beauty eyeshadow palette. So let's go ahead and jump right on in. So this palette retails for $48 and it has a total net weight of 18.75 grams. It is also cruelty-free and it's not marked on the packaging, but I believe that it is also vegan, just from memory, hearing Manny MUA talk about the pigments that have red dyes in them being vegan red dyes, which makes them pressed pigments, therefore not FDA approved for use around the eyes, but that means that they are vegan. So on that note, in case I forget to mention it later, I did get staining from this palette whenever I used any of the pink or purple shades, but it went away after a day and it was not harsh staining, it was just a slight tint. So this palette is available on Sephora, Beauty Bay, Morphe, and also the Lunar Beauty website, so there's plenty of places you can get your hands on it. So the palette packaging, I think, is absolutely stunning. I really, really love it. It's just so detailed and beautiful, and it's kind of like the hand here is embossed, and I don't really know what all of these different signs mean, but I know that it is supposed to be like kind of witchy. It's supposed to be kind of based on a spell book, which I think is really, really cool and fun. So the inside has a really, oh geez, almost dropped it. That would be my luck. It has a really large mirror. I hope you can tell. The actual packaging of the palette only takes up a little bit of space around the edges, so it is extremely easy to do your makeup with this. It is a really good quality mirror, and even though the packaging is really nice and it's kind of heavy, it's not too much to where you couldn't hold this up and do your makeup with it, which I appreciate. Mine's a little bit dirty because I'm messy when I do my makeup, but I think that the mirror is really, really nice if that's something that you care about. And then here is what the inside looks like. So the way it was broken down basically is there's a row of purples, a row of greens, and then the middle is supposed to be kind of your neutrally leaning tones that kind of connect and add just like a level of softness to the colors, which I think is a really cool idea, and it definitely intrigues me just because I love wearing colorful makeup, but I also have been really digging just kind of like that soft but still colorful vibe, like that like in between. So I really liked the concept of the palette. There are 8 different mattes in the palette, and I feel like all of them basically have the same formula, except for one that I feel is a little bit of a dud. And then there are 7 different shimmers, and I feel like between the shimmers there are, I would probably categorize it into 4 different categories of shimmers and how I would describe their textures. You definitely have a variety going on here, which I think is really fun. So I guess I always go back and forth on how to break down palettes and how I think of them, but maybe I'll just go through quickly and just talk about each shade with I was about to say, would that be okay? As if someone's actually going to respond to me right now. So this first shade here is called Peru, and it is definitely one of my favorite shades in the palette. It is such a beautiful, light, iridescent purple. It has like a little bit of a gray shift to it and like a pink iridescence. It is really, really beautiful, very special. It makes my heart so happy when palettes have those type of really special, interesting shades. Reminds me a lot of the Divina Willy Wonka Exploders collection, that kind of same vibes. I did compare it to Runts in my original video, and they are not dupes. I would say maybe alternatives. They're they're similar vibes, but not the exact same shift. But that's what the texture reminds me of. It is very soft and sparkly and just beautiful. I've used it on its own on the inner corner. I used it topped over the gold, and it just gave the gold a beautiful purple iridescence. I also think that if you're going to use this on the inner corner, I would definitely recommend spraying your brush or using a glitter glue, and it'll just take it to that next level. I really, really like the shade Peru. The only thing is, and I'll mention it really quickly in case I don't remember later, is that I do wish that there was something in this palette similar to Peru for the more greeny shades, because I feel like the only inner corner highlighter option you have is Peru, which is a light purple. You could also, if you have a deep skin tone, you could probably use Hermione on the inner corner and it would maybe reflect a little bit. It's kind of a mid-tone gold, but I just felt like if there was something like Peru except green, that would have been everything to me. But that's just me being a crazy inner quarter lady speaking. So whenever I did my week of, there were some moments where I did pull in a single shadow from another brand. Like today, the inner corner is from Terra Moons. Okay, so next is the shade Piper, which is a satin. That's how I would describe Piper. It's a really pretty kind of pinky burgundy type color, but it just has a soft sheen to it. That's personally not my absolute favorite formula. It's not because it's bad, like it's good, it performs well, it's pigmented, it's smooth, it's a good shadow. It's just that I don't tend to reach for true satins very often. I prefer like a super intense glittery metallic. That's just my makeup style. But I did use Piper a little bit. I combined it with other shades. I threw it on the lower lash line, which is normally what I do with satins. So I got some use out of it, and it is a good shadow. It's just not my personal preference per se. And then this shade right here is called Phoebe. And it's kind of weird because the texture is kind of strange to describe. It's very kind of thick, but it's like slick, but pressed down in the pan. So I feel like you kind of have to dig in a little bit to pick that shade up. But, oh, I got to sneeze. But I personally really prefer applying it with my finger. And when you apply it to the lid, you can really see the shift because it has like a deep burgundy base and then like blue reflex going throughout it. And I feel like it just, the way it sticks to the lid is so reliable. I don't even know. It just feels like a good shadow, like it's not going to go anywhere. It doesn't have fallout because the formula is just, it's so slick, and it feels almost like when you put your fingers in it and you swatch it, like it's not going to be that amazing. But if you use it with your finger on your lid, it is really stunning, and I love the shift. I even posted a little thing on Instagram stories. I don't know if I'll be able to insert it into this video, of like a up close video of my eye and like going back and forth, and you could see all the like shimmery blue sparkles as I moved my face back and forth, and I just love it. Like that's what I live for. And I feel like it just doesn't even, I mean, in the palette, like it looks pretty, but it doesn't look that intense. However, on the eyes, Phoebe is gorgeous. So next is the shade Page, which is a really kind of bright pink. It has just the touch of purple, but it's a bright pink. I had no problems blending that. I really liked it. It did stain a little bit, but it blended well. It's a pretty color and it's very vibrant. And then there's the shade Sabrina, which is a really bright, just true purple tone. Again, no problems blending. It worked easily. It was very vibrant. I would say of this row, the only thing I really kind of wish there was, which maybe I would replace Piper with, is like a really deep kind of rich, like eggplanty, plummy, burgundy, just something super deep, but still along that purpley red spectrum, I think would be a really nice addition to the purpley pinky look, because I feel like Sabrina is pretty, and it's a good shadow. It's just, it doesn't hold that much depth. It's more of a bright shade. I think a really deepening purple would have added a lot of value to that row. So now moving on to our little in-between row. First we have Winifred, which at first I thought I wasn't gonna like, just because I looked at it in the pan. I'm like, oh, it's like every other brown ever. But it actually does kind of have a little bit of that mustardy tone to it, and I do like it. I will say that I feel like Winifred and Kiki, the two browns, they blend okay, but I'm kind of surprised. I thought that they would blend, I gotta sneeze again. I thought that Winifred and Kiki would blend effortlessly because it's like they're browns, they're probably the easiest shades to formulate, and I felt like they blended okay, like they were fine. Like that's kind of how I feel about most of the mattes, is that they blend okay, but they're not like phenomenal, like they're not my favorite matte formula ever. So they're kind of that in between, kind of like, I don't know, maybe like a B minus. Like they show up, they do their job with a little effort. I don't know. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that they're okay, but there are matte formulas that I do like more. But I do like Winifred. I think it adds a good little extraness to the palette. It's a good shade, and I can see where someone who's getting this and wants to do pops of colors, but not like a full colorful look, would get a lot of use out of Winifred. And then there is Sarah here, which I was a little disappointed in because it looks so purple in the packaging, and I thought it was going to be like a really nice kind of like muted, dusty, cool tone purple, but I feel like it kind of just translates to straight up gray on my eye, which is not that big of a deal. It still does its job. It can still be a good transition shade for the other purples, but it kind of just turns gray. So I thought, the only reason I'm a little disappointed is because when I look at it in the palette, it looks purple, but it's not really. But again, it blends fine. So next is the shade Mary and Sabrina, which maybe I'll just talk about those two together. I find them to be pretty much the exact same formula. I would say that those two are more of a true metallic. They just feel like a true powder shadow, but they have a lot of intensity to them, a lot of sparkles, a lot of reflect. And even though those aren't the two like shades that I would typically reach for all the time, because I prefer like for my lid to be a little bit lighter, and I don't always reach for deeper metallics. That's not my favorite personally. I do actually really like them, and when I wore both of them on my lid, I was happy with them, and I thought that they were both really pretty because they have really stunning reflex, and that's kind of one of the things I love again about shimmers. It's like if someone takes a shadow that I wouldn't normally be drawn to and they formulate it well enough that I'm still drawn to it. I love that. Like, it's major points. So I do really like Mary and Samantha. I think that they're really pretty. And then Kiki is kind of just a mid-tone matte brown. I feel like for this palette, I wish that there had been another like deepening matte shade. I feel like that's the one thing that's kind of lacking, especially if you have a deeper skin tone. I don't feel like this might not be the level of depth that you want. For me, I can kind of get it there. I can build it up. I can make it work. But I think I would prefer to see something just a little bit darker. And then now for the last row of more greeny shades, we start off with Hermione, which is a gold, but it's actually really pretty. It has, I don't know, it has a little bit of a mustardy undertone, and I feel like if you like kind of camely, mustardy, baby poop shades, you always see those in mattes, but this is kind of the shimmer version of that. It's not just a regular lackluster gold. It's what I have on the inner part of my lid today, and I do really like it. The formula of Hermione is exactly how I described the formula of Phoebe, where it's a little bit slick, a little bit thicker in the pan. You kind of have to dig in there to pick it up, but it really, really applies well to the lid. It really sticks onto the lid well. Again, no fallout from that. And I use that with a finger, and I've also used it with a brush, and I had no problem. So I do really like that kind of formula. And again, it does have just some pretty like little shimmer flecks in it. That one not as much as Phoebe, but it's still a nice shadow, and I just really appreciate the interesting undertone. And then next we have the shade Bonnie, which I was really excited to see in here. And I'm actually happy that it's not quite so much of a bright green. I feel like it looks pretty bright when you look in the palette, but on the eyes it ends up looking a little bit murkier, a little bit more grungy, and I feel like that totally goes with the vibes of this palette. I like the more grungy greens, so I do really like Bonnie. I used it in my crease, and I feel like you do have to build it up a little bit, but I also used it on my inner corner, which I think looks really, really cool, and it's a really fun twist adding that shade. I love kind of greeny yellow tones, and that one just had a little bit more, like I said, a little bit more of a grunginess to it, so I was really happy with it, and I think it's a really cool shade to add in here. And then there is the shade Marnie, which is a nice, just kind of just like a true muted green. Again, I really like that one. I like the tone of it. It blended well. I felt like the greens blended pretty nice, at least those two, and I liked working with it. I felt like those two together were enough to kind of do a look, and you do the lighter green and then add the deep green. You could add in the brown if you wanted to, but I don't know. I really like the shade Marnie. I think it's very, very pretty. I love greens. So next is the only shade in the palette that I would personally kind of call a dud, just because I feel like it's not up to par with everything else in the palette, and that is the shade Nancy, which is kind of a bright teal shade. I just feel like it doesn't have the level of pigmentation that everything else does. it can be built up. I used it in my outer V today, but that what you see there is like 5 layers of Nancy. I also used it alone in my crease as kind of like I was trying to do a transition shade, and I feel like I just had to build and build and build and build and get it to show up. And I have a light skin tone, so it should be easier to show up on me. So I just feel like that shadow was the biggest letdown of the entire palette. I really wish that it would have had more pigmentation. It's sheer, and it's just a little bit confusing because all the other mattes are not like that, and that's the only one I'm kind of like about. I wish that would have been a little bit better, but I still, like I said, I've built it up. I've gotten a little bit of use out of it, but if it came down to like one of my favorite teal matte shades, like that would not be anywhere near the top or the middle of the list. It was very, very, very lackluster. So that's my biggest con with the palette, is the shade Nancy. If you're going into this and that's the shade you're like, you're justifying the price of the palette for, you're like, I'm going to use Nancy all the time. Just know, Nancy, she's a negative Nancy. All right, last but not least is the shade Fiona, which I think is a true satin. I would compare the formula of this to the formula of Piper. I find those to be very, very similar, just the way that they look, feel, apply. And I do really like Fiona. I think it's a really pretty color. It has a little bit of a deeper base, but it has kind of a really bright teal going on. I'm not saying that it's quite a duochrome, but it does have a little bit of a dimension to it. And I think that it's just a really pretty addition to all the other shades that are going on in the palette. I like it a lot. I wore it with the other greens. I wore it today kind of going into the gold, and I do just think it's a nice shadow. Again, if I were to do this palette myself, if this was me formulating it, I would have gotten Fiona and been like, yeah, no, like, can we send this back to the lab? We need like 10 times more metallic, 10 times more sparkle, more glitter, more everything, because that's just what I personally prefer. But I can see why someone would like this. I think it would be really pretty, kind of smudged out on the lower lash line, and overall, again, it's a good shadow. So that's my thoughts on all the shades individually. The palette as a whole, I would probably give a B-. I think just because if I had to sum it up really quickly, I do overall like the formulas. I find the mattes able to be worked with. Like I said, that they're not my favorite matte formula ever, but I can make them work, and other than Nancy, they're all decent. I really love these special shimmers that are going in here. Phoebe, Peru, I think Mary and Samantha are beautiful, and I do really like the color scheme all around. I was really inspired by this palette. Obviously, I went ahead and filmed 5 whole looks. And if it came down to it and Lunar Beauty came out with another palette that I really liked, I would purchase it. I think that I'm impressed enough that I would try them again. To be fair, I feel like the more I play with makeup, the more I get to know a ton of formulas, I'm a little bit harder to impress. So I would say that I think that this is a solid palette, and I think that, you know, whether you are someone who's more advanced, you could get really pretty looks out of this, or I think it would be very beginner friendly because the shades are, the matte shades are a little bit more buildable. I don't know, I just feel like the palette just captured green and purple, but still being so wearable and so easy, which I appreciate because I feel like, you know, I appreciate a brand who's willing to take risks and release more than just what the exact trend is at the moment. Okay, so that's my overall thoughts on the palette. I would love to know if you have tried Lunar Beauty, and if I missed out on any information, forgot to mention something, please feel free to ask down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Like I said, I would give this palette a B-, and I would definitely try Lunar Beauty again in the future. I would purchase more from them. This is a little bit random, but I also thought it was super cute that in my first impressions video, Manny's dad did comment and say thank you for like such a thorough video, and I just thought it was cute, and it kind of just made me think like, yeah, like of course, like Manny MUA is like a huge influencer, but Lunar Beauty in its own way is a family business. You can see there's a lot of hard work put into this, a lot of heart and soul. It's not just a name slapped on a palette. It's not just a name slapped on a lip gloss or a highlighter. Everything I've tried, I've been impressed with, and I felt like it was all high quality. It felt nice. There was like that, just like that personal, like, it has a little je ne sais quoi, like, I don't even know. So I'm happy with my purchases, and I think that's everything I have to say. I hope you enjoyed it. I really hope it was helpful, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.